The recently divorced millionaire took his gardener to a business dinner. When she started to speak, the businessman fell silent. That's when the passion began. Alex sat on the edge of his couch, staring at the silent, empty living room. The house was big, way too big for just one person. The echoes of his footsteps bounced off the marble floors. He sighed, running his hand through his silver hair. It was late in the afternoon, and the sun was setting behind the manicured hedges of his garden. He had everything: money, success, properties. But after the divorce, the mansion seemed more like a hollow shell. Outside, Lucy was in the garden, trimming the bushes with precision. She wore her usual uniform, green overalls, worn at the knees, her curly hair tied back to keep it out of her face. She loved working in the garden. The smell of fresh earth, the colors of the flowers, it all made her feel alive. She looked up, noticing Alex through the large glass windows. He was sitting there, staring into nothing. She had seen that look before, lonely and tired. "Good afternoon, Mr. Alex," Lucy said, straightening her back and giving a small wave. Alex looked up, startled out of his thoughts. He smiled slightly and nodded, walking towards her. "Good afternoon, Lucy." "How are the roses doing today?" he asked, his voice polite but distant. "They're blooming well," she said, gesturing to the bright red flowers beside her. "I think they like the extra sun we've had this week." He nodded again, glancing at the roses. He wasn't really looking at the flowers. He was looking past them, lost in thought. Lucy noticed it, but she didn't say anything. It wasn't her place. "You're doing a great job, as always," he added, before turning back to the house. Lucy watched him walk away, feeling a bit of sympathy for the man. He had everything, yet looked so lost. Later that evening, Alex met his old friend, Mark, at a quiet bar downtown. They hadn't seen each other in a while, and Mark was the type of friend who never sugar-coated things. After a few drinks, they got to talking about the divorce. "You know, Alex," Mark said, swirling the ice in his glass. "You drove her away. You chose work over everything else." Alex frowned but didn't argue. He knew it was true. His ex-wife had wanted time, affection, something more than just luxury. But he had been obsessed with his business deals, always chasing more. "Now look at you," Mark continued, "sitting alone in that big house. Is it even worth it?" Alex shrugged, his eyes downcast. "I thought it was at the time. Now, I'm not so sure." Meanwhile, Lucy finished her work and headed home, carrying her bag over her shoulder. She walked down the narrow street to her modest house. As she approached, she could already hear the familiar voices of her neighbors. They were sitting outside, gossiping as usual. "Working for that rich guy still, huh?" one of them called out, her tone dripping with judgment. "Must be nice, getting paid to trim bushes all day." Lucy ignored the comment, giving them a forced smile and heading inside. She was tired of the assumptions people made. They thought she was lucky, but they didn't know the reality. She worked hard, and it wasn't as glamorous as they imagined. The next day, Alex was in his office, surrounded by stacks of paperwork and his laptop. The house felt cold, empty. He rubbed his temples, trying to focus, but the silence was deafening. He leaned back in his chair, thinking about what Mark had said. Maybe he had messed everything up. Maybe he had let the wrong thing slip away. His phone buzzed, snapping him back to the present. It was a reminder about an upcoming business dinner. He needed a date. He stared at the screen, realizing he had no one to call. The people he once would have invited were gone, distanced by his obsession with work, or simply uninterested in his company now that he was divorced. Suddenly, he thought of Lucy. It was impulsive, and he wasn't sure why, but he dialed her number. She answered after a couple of rings. "Lucy, it's Alex," he said, trying to sound casual. "I have a bit of an unusual request. There's a business dinner I need to attend, and I was wondering if you'd come with me. It's nothing complicated, just I could use some company." There was silence on the other end. Lucy was taken aback. She had never expected this. Go to a dinner? With him? She hesitated, unsure of what to say. I'm not sure, Mr. Alex," she finally replied. "I don't know if I'd fit in at something like that." "Please," Alex said, his voice softer now. "It's just for tonight. I understand if you feel uncomfortable, but it would mean a lot." Lucy paused. She didn't want to go, but she couldn't find a way to refuse politely. Finally, she agreed. "Okay, I'll go," she said, her voice hesitant. "Thank you," Alex said, sounding relieved. "I'll pick you up at 7. Lucy hung up, staring at her phone. What had she just agreed to? She wasn't prepared for fancy dinners or sophisticated people. She sighed, trying to figure out what she'd even wear. This wasn't her world, but she couldn't turn back now. That evening, Alex waited outside Lucy's house. When she stepped out, he could see she was nervous. She had put on a simple dress, something she had saved for special occasions. She looked hesitant, her hands fidgeting. "You look great," Alex said as she got in the car. She gave a small smile, still unsure. The drive to the restaurant was mostly quiet. Alex could tell she was nervous. And honestly, he was too. He wasn't used to situations like this. He had always had everything planned, every detail sorted. But this was different. When they arrived, the restaurant was filled with wealthy businessmen and their companions. Lucy felt out of place the moment she stepped in. The eyes of the guests turned to them, and she could feel the stares. She kept her gaze down, trying to stay close to Alex. "Alex, good to see you." One of the businessmen greeted them, his eyes briefly lingering on Lucy, curiosity obvious. Alex introduced her quickly, and they joined the table. As the evening went on, Lucy found herself listening more than talking. The businessmen discussed investments, projects, things she knew little about. But when the conversation shifted to environmental initiatives, something clicked. Alex noticed Lucy leaning in slightly, her eyes lighting up. One of the guests mentioned a plan for sustainable landscaping, and Lucy spoke up, her voice clear and confident. "I think using native plants would be more effective," she said. "They're adapted to the climate and need less maintenance." The men paused, turning to her. Alex watched, surprised, as she continued. She spoke about her experience with plants, how different flowers responded to the seasons, the benefits of natural fertilizers. The businessmen listened, genuinely interested. As Lucy spoke, Alex found himself admiring her more. She was smart, knowledgeable, and spoke with passion. He realized he had never really seen this side of her before. The people around the table seemed impressed, and for the first time that night, Lucy didn't feel so out of place. When they left the restaurant, the atmosphere between them had changed. It wasn't just employer and employee anymore. There was something else, a connection that neither of them could quite name. The drive back was quiet again, but this time it felt different, almost comfortable. "Thank you for coming tonight," Alex said as they pulled up in front of her house. "Thank you for inviting me," Lucy replied, her voice soft. She stepped out of the car, giving him a small wave before disappearing inside. Alex sat there for a moment, watching her door close. He hadn't expected the night to go like this. He hadn't expected to feel anything at all. But now, there was something there, something he couldn't ignore. Lucy stood in front of her small mirror, staring at her reflection. Her hands felt shaky as she fixed her hair for the third time. She had chosen a simple black dress, one she had saved for special occasions, though she never really had many. She sighed, adjusting the collar again. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. The thought of being in a room full of wealthy, sophisticated people made her stomach turn. She wasn't one of them. She wasn't meant for that kind of world. 7 o'clock sharp. A knock on her door. Lucy opened it to find Alex standing there, wearing a crisp suit. He smiled, trying to seem relaxed. "Ready?" he asked, his eyes scanning her briefly. "You look great." She nodded, her voice barely coming out. "Thank you, I guess I'm ready." Alex led her to the car parked outside. The ride to the restaurant was quiet. Lucy kept her hands on her lap, trying not to fidget, while Alex kept his eyes on the road. The silence was heavy, filled with both of their anxieties. As they arrived at the restaurant, Lucy felt her heart pound faster. The entrance was lined with polished cars and well-dressed doormen. Alex opened her door, and she stepped out slowly, her eyes darting around. She could already feel the stares from the people at the entrance. Inside, the restaurant was even more overwhelming. The chandeliers sparkled above the room, and tables were filled with well-dressed men and women sipping expensive wine. Alex put his hand lightly on Lucy's back, guiding her through the crowd. "Alex, good to see you," a voice boomed from across the room. One of the businessmen approached them, a wide smile on his face. His eyes shifted briefly to Lucy, curiosity evident. "Good evening," Alex greeted, nodding. "This is Lucy. She works with me." The man nodded politely, though Lucy could sense the judgment in his eyes. She forced a smile, her eyes lowering to the floor. They made their way to a table where several other businessmen were seated. Alex introduced Lucy again, and she felt her cheeks burn as each man gave her a polite but indifferent nod. She sat down beside Alex, feeling entirely out of place. Throughout the dinner, the conversation flowed easily among the men. They discussed business deals, market trends, things that Lucy had no idea about. She tried to follow along, nodding occasionally, but mostly she stayed silent, her eyes shifting between her plate and the people around her. Then the topic changed. One of the businessmen brought up environmental initiatives, mentioning a landscaping project his company was considering. Lucy's ears perked up. "We've been trying to figure out the best approach for sustainable landscaping," the man said. "But honestly, it's a challenge." Without thinking, Lucy spoke up. "Maybe native plants would work better. They're already adapted to the climate and require less maintenance." The table went silent. Lucy immediately regretted speaking, her eyes widening. She could feel everyone looking at her. The businessman who had been speaking raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Native plants, you say?" Lucy swallowed, nodding. "Yes, they're more resilient, and they don't need as much water or chemical fertilizers. It could save costs and be better for the environment." Alex watched her, surprised. She spoke with confidence, her voice steady. The businessmen seemed genuinely interested, asking her more questions. Lucy explained what she knew, how different plants responded to the seasons, the importance of soil health. The men listened, nodding, some even taking notes. As she talked, Alex felt something shift inside him. He had never really seen this side of her before, so knowledgeable, so passionate. It wasn't just about the plants. It was about the way she spoke, the way she commanded attention without even trying. After a while, the conversation moved on, and Lucy went back to her quiet self, her eyes on her plate. But Alex couldn't stop glancing at her. Something had changed. She wasn't just his gardener anymore. She was something more, though he didn't quite know what. The dinner finally came to an end, and Alex stood up, helping Lucy with her chair. They walked out together, and he could feel the eyes of the other guests following them. He ignored it, focusing instead on Lucy. She looked tired but also relieved. The car ride back was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't filled with tension this time, but with a sense of something new, something neither of them could put into words. As they pulled up to Lucy's house, Alex turned to her. "Thank you for coming tonight. I know it wasn't easy. Lucy looked at him, her expression softening. It was different, she said. But I think it went okay. He nodded, smiling slightly. It did. You were incredible. She blushed, looking away. Thank you, Mr. Alex. Just Alex, he corrected, his voice gentle. She opened the door, stepping out. Good night, Alex. Good night, Lucy, he replied, watching her until she disappeared inside. He sat there for a moment, staring at her door. There was something there now, something he couldn't ignore. He didn't know what it meant, but he knew one thing. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning, Alex found himself staring out of his office window, his mind drifting back to the dinner the night before. He could still see Lucy's face, the way she spoke with such confidence, her eyes lighting up as she talked about what she knew best. It had surprised him. He wasn't used to being surprised. Not anymore. Everything in his life had always been predictable, controlled, but last night had felt different, and it bothered him that he couldn't stop thinking about it. He shook his head, trying to focus on the documents spread across his desk, but the numbers blurred in front of him, his mind wandering back to Lucy. What was it about her that made him feel like this? She was his gardener, a part of his household, someone he barely noticed until now. But something had shifted, and he couldn't deny it. Later that day, Alex found himself in the garden, watching Lucy work. She was kneeling in the flower bed, her hands dirty as she carefully pruned the rose bushes. She looked up, noticing him, and gave a small smile. Mr. Alex, she said, standing up and wiping her hands on her overalls. Is there something you need? He shook his head. I was just checking in. You're doing a great job, as always. Lucy nodded, her eyes meeting his briefly before looking away. She could feel something had changed between them, and it made her nervous. She didn't know what it meant, but she could sense the difference in the way he looked at her, the way he spoke to her now. Thank you, she replied, her voice soft. There was a moment of silence between them, neither of them quite knowing what to say. Alex cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. About last night, he started. I wanted to say thank you. You handled yourself incredibly well. I know it wasn't easy. Lucy looked at him, her expression unreadable. It was different. I wasn't sure if I should have been there. Alex frowned. You belong anywhere you want to be, Lucy. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. She blinked, surprised by his words. She wasn't used to hearing things like that, especially not from someone like Alex. She gave a small nod, unsure of how to respond. Thank you, she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded, his eyes lingering on her for a moment longer before he turned and walked away. He needed to clear his head. Being around her made him feel things he didn't want to acknowledge, things he wasn't sure he was ready for. The rest of the day passed slowly. Alex buried himself in work, trying to ignore the thoughts that kept creeping back in. He needed to focus, to get his life back in order. He had built his success on being in control, and now, everything felt like it was slipping away. As evening approached, he made a decision. He needed distance. He couldn't keep letting his emotions cloud his judgment. He called Lucy into his office, her eyes wary as she stepped inside. Mr. Alex? She asked, her voice cautious. He took a deep breath, looking at her. I want to thank you again for last night. You were incredible, and as a token of my appreciation, I'd like to give you a bonus. You deserve it. Lucy's eyes widened, her heart sinking. She knew what this was. He was trying to create distance, trying to put things back in their proper places. She shook her head, her voice firm. I don't want a bonus, Mr. Alex. I just want to do my job. He frowned, confused. Lucy, It's just a gesture. You earned it." She shook her head again, her gaze meeting his. "I don't want it. I just want things to go back to normal." Alex stared at her, a mix of emotions running through him. He didn't know what to say. He had thought this would make things easier, but it only made the gap between them wider. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. "All right," he said, his voice barely audible. "If that's what you want." Lucy turned and left the room, her heart heavy. She knew she had done the right thing, but it didn't make it any easier. She just wanted to go back to the way things were before all of this confusion and mixed feelings. The next morning, Lucy returned to her usual routine, tending to the garden, trying to keep her mind on her work. Alex watched her from his office window, a sense of emptiness settling in his chest. He had thought he could solve everything with money, but now he realized how wrong he was. A knock on his office door interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see his ex-wife standing there, her expression cold and calculated. "Alex," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk." He frowned, leaning back in his chair. "What is it?" She crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "I've been hearing things about you and that gardener of yours. Are you out of your mind?" Alex's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "That's none of your business," she scoffed, shaking her head. "You think people won't notice? You're risking everything for what? A fling with someone completely beneath you." He stood up, his hands clenching at his sides. "Lucy is not beneath me, and what I do is none of your concern." His ex-wife raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on her lips. "You're losing it, Alex. People are talking. You need to think about your reputation. You've worked too hard to throw it all away for some fantasy." He took a deep breath, trying to keep his anger in check. "Get out," he said, his voice cold. "I don't need your advice." She gave a sarcastic laugh, turning and walking out without another word. Alex sat back down, his heart pounding. He knew she was right, at least in part. People would talk. They already were, and he had no idea how to handle it. Lucy, meanwhile, had overheard part of the conversation. She stood in the hallway, her hands trembling as she heard Alex defending her. It made her chest tighten, a mix of fear and something she didn't want to name. She couldn't do this. She couldn't be the reason for his troubles. She had to put an end to it. That night, Lucy made her decision. She had to leave. This was getting too complicated, and she couldn't let herself become part of his problems. She gathered her things, her heart heavy, and wrote a short note, leaving it on Alex's desk. "Mr. Alex, I'm resigning from my position. I appreciate everything you've done, but it's best if I leave. Thank you for everything." She left the mansion quietly, her heart aching. She knew this was the right thing to do, but it still hurt more than she expected. The next morning, Alex found the note. He read it, his hands trembling, his heart sinking. She was gone. He had driven her away, just like he had with everything else that mattered. He sat down, the silence of the mansion pressing in on him. He had lost something important, something he hadn't even realized he needed until it was gone. Alex sat at his office desk, tapping his fingers impatiently. He knew he couldn't put this off any longer. His ex-wife, Claire, had made a scene the day before, questioning his judgment and belittling Lucy. It was time to put an end to her meddling. He took a deep breath and dialed Claire's number. "Alex?" Claire's voice was sharp as she picked up. "What do you want?" "We need to talk," he said, his tone calm but firm. "This can't go on." "You're overstepping." Claire let out a scoff. "Overstepping? I'm trying to save you from ruining your reputation. You're about to throw everything away for some gardener." Alex clenched his jaw. Lucy is not just some gardener. She's an intelligent, hard-working woman, and you need to stay out of my business. There was silence on the other end, followed by a mocking laugh. Now you're serious about this, aren't you? Claire's voice dripped with disbelief. I am, Alex replied, and I won't let you interfere anymore. Fine, Claire said curtly, but don't say I didn't warn you. She hung up without another word. Alex put the phone down, his heart pounding. He had defended Lucy, but he knew the consequences were only beginning. Claire wouldn't back down easily, and the whispers from others would only grow louder. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He couldn't let fear dictate his actions. Meanwhile, Lucy was in the garden, her hands trembling as she worked. She had overheard bits and pieces of the conversation between Alex and his ex-wife, and it had left her shaken. She knew she didn't belong in Alex's world. People would talk. They already were. She could feel the stares of the neighbors every time she walked home. Later that day, she could barely focus on her work. The pressure was too much. The whispers, the stares, the feeling that she was just a pawn in someone else's life. It was all overwhelming. She couldn't stay here. She needed to leave, for her own sake and for Alex's. That evening, she gathered her courage and went to Alex's office. He looked up as she entered, a smile on his face. Lucy, come in. I was just thinking... She cut him off, her voice trembling. Mr. Alex, I need to resign. The words hung in the air, and Alex's face fell. He stared at her, not understanding. What? Why? It's too much, she said, her eyes downcast. People are talking. Your ex-wife is angry, and I don't belong here. I don't want to be the cause of any trouble for you. Alex stood up, his heart pounding. Lucy, you're not causing trouble. I don't care what people say. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. But I do. I can't be part of this. I'm just a gardener, Mr. Alex. I don't belong in your life. He took a step closer, his voice softening. You're more than just a gardener, Lucy. You belong wherever you want to be. But she couldn't look at him. She had already made up her mind. I'm sorry, she whispered. I have to go. Alex felt a rush of desperation. He couldn't lose her. Not like this. Please, Lucy, don't do this. Let's talk about it. Figure something out. She shook her head again, her voice breaking. I'm sorry, she repeated, before turning and leaving the room. Alex stood there, his heart sinking as the door closed behind her. He had lost her, and it felt like a piece of himself had gone with her. Lucy walked out of the mansion, her steps heavy. She felt a mix of sadness and relief. She had made the right choice, but it still hurt. She looked back at the house one last time before walking away, her heart aching. The next morning, Alex woke up to the deafening silence of the empty mansion. He walked through the halls, the echoes of his footsteps reminding him of just how alone he was. He made his way to the garden, hoping to see Lucy there, even though he knew she was gone. The garden felt different without her, lifeless, despite the vibrant flowers. He stood there for a long time, his thoughts drifting back to all the moments they had shared. The way she had smiled at him, the way she had spoken with such passion at the dinner. He realized then just how much she meant to him. She wasn't just someone who worked for him. She was someone who had brought life back into his world. And now she was gone. He knew he couldn't let it end like this. He had to do something, but he didn't know what. He couldn't just show up at her door, not after the way things had ended. He had to find a way to prove to her that she was more than just a gardener to him, that he truly cared about her. He spent the day lost in thought, trying to come up with a plan. He knew he couldn't let the opinions of others dictate his life anymore. Lucy was worth fighting for, and he was determined to show her that. That night, he made a decision. He would go to her house. He would face whatever judgment came his way, whatever stares or whispers, because none of that mattered compared to losing her. He had let fear control him for too long, and it had cost him everything that mattered. The next day, Alex stood outside Lucy's small house, his heart pounding. He could see the curtains twitching as the neighbors watched, their eyes full of curiosity. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door, his hands trembling slightly. Lucy opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise. She hadn't expected to see him. Not here. Not now. "Alex," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "I couldn't let you leave like that. I had to see you." She looked at him, her heart pounding. "Why are you here?" "Because I care about you, Lucy," he said, his voice raw. "I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care about my reputation or the whispers. I care about you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything, for trying to fix things with money, for not seeing you for who you really are sooner. You're not just a gardener. You're everything I've been missing." Lucy felt tears welling in her eyes, her heart aching. She wanted to believe him, but the fear was still there. "Alex, I don't know if I can do this. I'm scared." He took a step closer, his voice gentle. "I know, and I understand, but I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. I will prove to you, every day, that I mean what I say. I want you to be happy, Lucy, whatever that means for you. If you need time, I'll wait." She looked at him, her emotions swirling inside her. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the vulnerability. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered, "but I need time." Alex nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." Lucy gave a small smile, her heart feeling lighter. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. The neighbors watched as Alex stepped closer, his eyes still on Lucy. He didn't care about their stares. All that mattered was her. He reached out, gently touching her hand. "Thank you," he said softly. She nodded, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you for coming." They stood there for a moment, the world around them fading away. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a start. And for now, that was enough. Lucy sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the bills scattered in front of her. The numbers blurred together as she tried to make sense of them. She had thought that leaving the mansion would bring her some peace, but all it had done was bring back the old struggles. The weight of her financial reality was heavy, pressing down on her shoulders. Her mother's medical bills were piling up again, and without her job at Alex's, she had no idea how she was going to manage. She sighed, rubbing her temples. She had already tried finding another job, but the options were limited. The best she could get was working in a small nursery across town, but the pay was barely enough to cover her basic expenses. It wasn't enough to pay off the debt. The stress gnawed at her, keeping her awake at night, her mind constantly racing with worries about the future. That afternoon, Lucy was out looking for work. She walked from one shop to another, asking if they needed help, but it was always the same answer, a polite no or a dismissive shake of the head. She was starting to lose hope. It felt like everything was against her, no matter how hard she tried. She returned home late, exhausted and defeated. As she walked up the narrow street to her house, she could see her neighbor, Mrs. Rose Wilson, sitting on her porch. The older woman gave her a sympathetic look. "Back from job hunting again?" Mrs. Rose Wilson asked, her voice gentle. Lucy nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, no luck today, either." Mrs. Rose Wilson sighed, shaking her head. "It's tough out there. But you'll find something, Carita. You're hardworking. Don't give up." "Thanks, Mrs. Rose Wilson." Lucy replied, her voice soft. She appreciated the encouragement, but it was hard to hold on to hope when everything seemed so bleak. The next morning, Lucy received a surprise visitor. She opened the door to find Alex standing there, his eyes filled with concern. He looked different, less put together than usual, as if he hadn't slept well. "Alex," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and confusion. "What are you doing here?" He looked at her, taking a deep breath. "I heard about your situation, Lucy, about your mom's bills. I came to help." Lucy's eyes widened, and she immediately shook her head. "No, Alex, I can't accept that. I don't want your money." He stepped closer, his expression earnest. "It's not just about money, Lucy. I want to help because I care about you. Please let me do this." She shook her head again, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. "I can't. It would feel wrong. I need to do this on my own." Alex felt a pang of frustration, but he understood. He knew how much her independence meant to her. He nodded slowly, his heart heavy. "All right, I won't push. But if you need anything at all, I'm here." Lucy looked at him, her emotions conflicted. Part of her wanted to accept his help, to let him take some of the burden off her shoulders. But another part of her knew she couldn't. She had to find her own way, even if it was hard. She gave a small nod, her voice barely audible. "Thank you." Alex reached out, gently squeezing her hand. "Promise me you'll call if you need anything." She nodded again, her throat tight. "I promise." He gave her a sad smile before turning and walking away. Lucy watched him go, her heart aching. She appreciated his offer, but she couldn't let herself become dependent on him. She had to stand on her own 2 feet. That evening, Lucy sat on her bed, staring at her mother's old photo. Her mother had always been a fighter, someone who never gave up, no matter how tough things got. Lucy wanted to be like her, to keep going even when everything seemed impossible. She wiped her eyes, determination settling in her chest. She couldn't let herself fall apart. She had to keep fighting. The next few days were exhausting. Lucy spent every waking moment looking for work, taking whatever odd jobs she could find. She cleaned houses, helped at the nursery, even did laundry for some of the neighbors. But it still wasn't enough. The stress was eating away at her, the constant pressure never letting up. One afternoon, while she was working at the nursery, her friend Carly stopped by. Carly was one of the few people who knew everything Lucy was going through, and she had always been there to lend a listening ear. "Hey," Carly said, her voice soft as she approached. "How are you holding up?" Lucy looked up, giving a tired smile. "I'm managing, barely, but I'm managing." Carly frowned, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I wish there was more I could do to help." "You're already helping just by being here," Lucy replied, her voice cracking slightly. She looked away, blinking back tears. "It's just, everything feels so heavy. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Carly reached out, squeezing her shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, Lucy. You've been through so much, and you're still standing." "That's something." Lucy nodded, trying to believe her friend's words. She wanted to believe that she was strong enough, that she could get through this. But the weight of her situation felt like it was crushing her, and she didn't know how much longer she could keep going. That night, Lucy lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Alex. She had pushed him away, but part of her couldn't stop thinking about him. He had been so kind, so genuine. She missed him, missed the way he made her feel like she mattered. But she couldn't let herself fall into that again. She had to focus on getting her life back together. The next morning, Lucy received a call from the nursery. They wanted her to take on more hours, which meant more pay. It wasn't much, but it was something. She felt a small glimmer of hope as she agreed. It was a step, even if it was a small one. She was determined to keep moving forward, no matter how slow the progress. As she walked to the nursery, she thought about Alex. She knew she couldn't rely on him, but maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to push him away completely. Maybe there was a way to let him be a part of her life without losing herself in the process. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing: she wasn't ready to give up. Not on herself, and not on the possibility of something more with Alex. Alex stood in his office, staring at the papers on his desk, but his mind was elsewhere. It had been days since he had seen Lucy, and the emptiness of the mansion felt unbearable. He needed to see her. He needed to show her that he wasn't giving up on them, no matter what anyone said. He took a deep breath and made up his mind. He grabbed his keys and left his office, heading straight for his car. The drive to Lucy's house was a blur. His heart pounded as he parked on the narrow street, stepping out of the car. He could feel the eyes of the neighbors on him, watching from behind their curtains. But he didn't care. He was here for Lucy, and that was all that mattered. He knocked on her door, his hands trembling slightly. After a few moments, the door opened, and Lucy stood there, her eyes wide with surprise. "Alex?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked around, noticing the curious stares from the neighbors. He nodded, his eyes locking onto hers. "I had to see you, Lucy. I couldn't let things end like this." Lucy swallowed, stepping back slightly. "Why are you here? People are watching." "I don't care," Alex said, his voice firm. "Let them watch. Let them talk. None of it matters to me. What matters is you." Lucy blinked, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, the vulnerability. She hesitated, glancing around at the neighbors before stepping aside. "Come in," she said quietly. Alex entered the small house, the door closing behind him. He looked around, taking in the modest surroundings. It was so different from his mansion, but it felt warm, lived in. He turned back to Lucy, his eyes softening. "Lucy, I know you're scared," he said, his voice gentle. "I know this isn't easy, but I care about you, and I don't want to lose you." Lucy looked down, her hands fidgeting. "Alex, I don't know if this can work. We come from different worlds. People will always talk. They'll always judge." He stepped closer, his voice earnest. "Let them. I'm done living my life for other people's opinions. I've spent too much time worrying about my reputation, about what others think. And look where it got me. Alone, empty. But with you, Lucy, I feel alive. I don't care about anything else." She looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes. "But I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." "You're not," he said, shaking his head. "You're the reason I've found something worth fighting for. I've already lost so much because I was too afraid to take risks. I'm not making that mistake again." Lucy wiped her eyes, her heart aching. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this could work. But the fear was still there. The fear of being hurt, of being used and discarded. "Alex, I need time," she said, her voice breaking. "I need to know that this isn't just some impulse, that you won't change your mind when things get tough." He nodded, stepping closer and taking her hands in his. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. I'll prove to you, every day, that I'm serious about this, about us." She looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity, the determination. Slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered, "but no promises. I need to take this one step at a time." He smiled, a weight lifting off his chest. "That's all I'm asking for." They stood there for a moment, the tension easing between them. Alex reached out, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. You mean so much to me, Lucy, more than I can put into words. She gave a small smile, her heart feeling lighter. Thank you for coming, she said softly. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. I'll always come for you, no matter what. They sat down on the small couch, the room quiet except for the distant sounds of the neighborhood outside. Alex looked around, noticing the little details of her home, the old photos on the wall, the simple but cozy furniture. It was a side of her life he had never seen before, and it made him realize just how much he still had to learn about her. Lucy took a deep breath, her fingers nervously playing with the edge of her sleeve. This isn't going to be easy, you know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded, his expression serious. I know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I want to be part of your life, Lucy. Not just in the good times, but in the hard times too. She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. She could see the determination there, the sincerity. Slowly, she nodded. All right, we can try. A smile spread across Alex's face, and he reached out, taking her hand. That's all I need. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their decision settling in. Lucy could feel the fear still there, but alongside it was a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. Maybe she could let herself trust him, let herself believe that he was different. Alex squeezed her hand gently. I want to help you, Lucy, with everything, but I understand if you need to do this on your own. She looked at him, her eyes softening. I do. I need to know I can stand on my own 2 feet, but it means a lot that you're here. He nodded, his heart swelling. I'll always be here, no matter what. As they sat there, Lucy felt a sense of calm wash over her. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't facing it alone. She had someone by her side, someone who was willing to fight for her, and that made all the difference. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow through the small window. Alex glanced outside, then back at Lucy. I should go, he said softly. But I'll be back, whenever you're ready. Lucy nodded, standing up with him. She walked him to the door, her heart feeling lighter than it had in days. As he stepped outside, he turned back to her, his eyes filled with warmth. Take care, Lucy, and remember, I'm just a call away, he said, his voice gentle. She smiled, nodding. I will. Thank you, Alex. He gave her one last smile before turning and walking down the narrow path. Lucy watched him go, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions. She didn't know where this path would lead, but she knew one thing. She wasn't ready to give up on the possibility of something real, something true. She closed the door, leaning against it for a moment, taking a deep breath. She had let him in, just a little, and maybe that was enough for now. The next morning, Lucy woke up feeling different. There was a lightness in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't that all her problems were gone, far from it, but knowing that Alex was willing to fight for her, that he cared, made it easier to face the day. She got ready for work at the nursery, pulling her hair back into a loose ponytail and putting on her old work clothes. As she walked down the street, she noticed some of the neighbors watching her, whispering among themselves. She kept her head up, ignoring them. She wasn't going to let their judgment affect her anymore. She had enough to deal with already. At the nursery, Lucy got to work, her hands busy with the plants. She loved working with them, caring for something, watching it grow. It gave her a sense of purpose, something solid in a world that often felt so uncertain. Halfway through the day, she was surprised to see Alex walking through the gate. He was dressed more casually than usual, and he looked slightly out of place among the rows of potted plants and soil. "Alex," she said, standing up and brushing her hands on her pants. What are you doing here?" He smiled, a little unsure. "I wanted to see you. I brought lunch." He held up a small paper bag, giving her a hopeful look. Lucy blinked, taken aback. "You brought lunch?" He nodded. "I thought we could eat together if you're not too busy." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. I guess I could use a break." They found a small bench in the corner of the nursery, under the shade of a large tree. Alex handed her one of the sandwiches he had brought, and they sat in silence for a moment, eating. "So," Lucy said after a while, glancing at him, "this is different. You, here, at my work." Alex smiled, nodding. "I know. I just wanted to see you, and I thought, I don't know, I wanted to be a part of your world, even if just a little." She looked at him, her heart softening. "It means a lot, you being here. But you know this is my space, right? My work. It's important to me." He nodded, his expression serious. "I know. I'm not here to interfere. I just want to support you, however I can." She gave him a small smile, her heart warming. "Thank you. I appreciate that." They continued eating, the silence between them comfortable. Alex watched her, noticing the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her work, the way she seemed more at ease here than anywhere else. He realized how much he still had to learn about her, and it made him want to be a better part of her life. "Lucy," he said after a while, his voice soft. "I know things are complicated right now, but I want to help you with your dreams, whatever they are." She looked at him, surprised. "My dreams." He nodded. "You mentioned once that you had to give up studying to help your mom. I'd like to help you get back to that, if that's something you want." Lucy was quiet for a moment, her eyes dropping to her lap. It was true. She had always dreamed of studying horticulture, of learning more about the plants she loved so much, but it had always seemed impossible, something too far out of reach. "I don't know, Alex," she said quietly. "I appreciate it, but I'm not sure I can do it. It's been so long." He reached out, taking her hand gently. "You can do it, Lucy. You're one of the smartest, most capable people I know. And if it's something you want, I'll be here to help you every step of the way." She looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. She could see the sincerity there, the belief he had in her. Slowly, she nodded. "Okay. Maybe I'll think about it." He smiled, squeezing her hand. "That's all I ask." They finished their lunch, and Alex stayed for a while longer, helping her with the plants. He was clumsy, clearly not used to the work, but Lucy found herself laughing as he fumbled with the watering can, spilling more water on himself than on the plants. "You're hopeless," she said, shaking her head, a smile on her face. He grinned, shrugging. "I'm trying. That counts for something, right?" She laughed, nodding. "Yeah, it counts." As the afternoon wore on, Alex finally said his goodbyes, promising to see her again soon. Lucy watched him leave, a warmth in her chest. She still had her fears, her doubts, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like there was hope. Maybe she could have something more, both for herself and with Alex. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Alex would visit her at the nursery during his breaks, sometimes bringing lunch, other times just to talk. They were getting to know each other in a way they hadn't before. Slowly, without the pressure of their different worlds looming over them. Lucy began to feel more comfortable, letting her guard down bit by bit. One day, Alex arrived with a stack of books. He set them down on the bench, looking slightly nervous. "What are these?" Lucy asked, eyeing the books curiously. "They're about horticulture," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I thought maybe you could start studying again. Just a little, when you have time." Lucy stared at the books, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions. She reached out, running her fingers over the covers. It was something she had always wanted, but never thought she'd have the chance to do again. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say." Alex smiled, his eyes warm. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that I believe in you, Lucy, and I'm here to support you, whatever you decide." She looked at him, her heart full. Slowly, she nodded. "Okay, I'll give it a try." The days turned into weeks, and Lucy found herself falling into a new routine. She worked at the nursery during the day, and at night, she studied. It was hard, balancing everything, but she felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. She was doing something for herself, something that mattered, and Alex was there every step of the way. He never pushed her, never demanded anything. He was just there, supporting her, encouraging her, believing in her. It made all the difference. One evening, after a particularly long day, Alex stopped by her house. He had brought dinner, and they sat together in her small kitchen, the atmosphere between them warm and comfortable. "You look tired," he said, his voice gentle. Lucy nodded, giving a small smile. "I am, but it's a good kind of tired." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm proud of you, Lucy. You're doing so much, and you're doing it all so well." She looked at him, her heart swelling. "Thank you, Alex, for everything." He smiled, his eyes meeting hers. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad I get to be part of your life." Lucy felt her heart skip a beat, a warmth spreading through her chest. She wasn't sure where this journey would lead, but she knew one thing. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Alex by her side, and for now, that was more than enough. Lucy stood in front of the classroom, her heart pounding. It had been years since she had been in any kind of formal educational setting, and now she was here, standing among other students, all with their own dreams and aspirations. She had decided to take Alex's encouragement seriously, and she had enrolled in a part-time horticulture course. It was just a technical class, but it was a step towards something she had always wanted. The instructor called for everyone's attention, and Lucy quickly found her seat, trying to calm her nerves. She looked around, seeing the unfamiliar faces, feeling a bit out of place. But then she remembered Alex's words. "You belong wherever you want to be." She took a deep breath, allowing herself to believe it, even if just a little. After the class ended, Lucy walked out with her books clutched tightly to her chest. The sun had already set, and the campus was quiet, the air cool against her skin. She felt a sense of pride, a small smile tugging at her lips. It was a small step, but it was hers, and it felt good. When she reached home, she found Alex waiting on her porch, a smile on his face as he stood up to greet her. "How was it?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. Lucy smiled, her heart warming at the sight of him. "It was good. I was nervous, but it went well." Alex grinned, his relief evident. "I knew it would. I'm so proud of you, Lucy." She looked down, her cheeks warming. "Thank you, Alex. I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head, stepping closer. "You did this on your own. I just gave you a little push." She smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. They stood there for a moment, the night quiet around them. Alex reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "You're amazing, Lucy," he said softly. "You've come so far, and I'm so lucky to be here with you." She looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. There was a warmth there, a sincerity that made her chest tighten. She reached out, taking his hand. "I'm lucky too," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me." Alex smiled, his thumb gently stroking her hand. "Always." The next morning, Lucy woke up early, ready to start her day. She had her job at the nursery, her classes, and her studying. It was a lot, but she felt a sense of purpose that she hadn't felt in years. She had something to work towards, something that was just for her. At the nursery, she found herself smiling more. She worked with a new energy, her hands moving quickly and confidently as she cared for the plants. Her co-workers noticed the change, and they often teased her about the new spring in her step. "Got something good happening in your life, Lucy?" her friend Carly asked one afternoon, a teasing smile on her face. Lucy blushed, shrugging. "Maybe," she said, her voice light. She didn't want to say too much, but it was clear that things were different now. Later that week, Alex showed up at the nursery again, his casual visits becoming a familiar part of her routine. He brought coffee this time, handing her a cup as they walked among the plants. "How's the class going?" he asked, his eyes filled with genuine interest. Lucy smiled, taking a sip of her coffee. "It's going well. I'm learning a lot. It's a bit overwhelming at times, but I like it." "I'm glad," Alex said, his voice warm. He paused for a moment, looking at her. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe we could do something together for the garden at the mansion. You could design it, make it your own." Lucy looked at him, her eyes widening. "Really?" He nodded. "Really. You've always done such an amazing job with it, but I want you to have more freedom. Make it what you want it to be." She felt her heart swell with emotion, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. "Alex, I don't know what to say. That would be incredible." He smiled, his hand gently touching her arm. "You deserve it, Lucy. You've worked so hard, and you have such a gift. I want you to be able to share that." She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, I'd love that." They spent the rest of the afternoon walking through the nursery, talking about ideas for the garden. Lucy's mind raced with possibilities, her excitement growing with each new idea. She wanted to create something beautiful, something that would reflect all the hope and growth she felt inside. Over the next few weeks, Lucy and Alex worked together to transform the garden. Lucy spent her evenings sketching designs, her textbook spread out on the table as she researched different plants and layouts. Alex would come by, often bringing dinner, and they would sit together, discussing her ideas and making plans. The work on the garden became a project for both of them, a way to spend time together, to create something that was theirs. Alex watched in awe as Lucy worked, her hands moving with a confidence and grace that he admired deeply. She had a vision, and he was more than happy to help bring it to life. One afternoon, as they were planting a row of flowers, Alex looked over at Lucy, his heart swelling with pride. She was kneeling in the dirt, her hands covered in soil, a smile on her face as she carefully placed each plant in the ground. He realized then just how much she had changed his life. She had brought light into his world, filled the emptiness with her warmth and strength. "Lucy," he said, his voice soft. She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "Yes," he smiled, his heart full. "You've made this place beautiful, and you've made my life beautiful too. I hope you know that." She paused, her eyes softening. She reached out, taking his hand. "You've done the same for me, Alex. You gave me a chance when no one else would. You believed in me." He squeezed her hand gently, his voice filled with emotion. "I always will." They continued working, the garden slowly taking shape around them. It was hard work, but it was also rewarding. Every new flower, every carefully placed stone, was a testament to their efforts, to their growth, both as individuals and together. As the sun began to set, they stood back, looking at what they had created so far. The garden was starting to bloom, colors spreading across the carefully arranged beds. the air filled with the scent of fresh earth and flowers. "It's beautiful," Lucy whispered, her voice filled with awe. Alex nodded, his eyes on her. "It is, and it's only the beginning." She looked at him, a smile spreading across her face. "Yeah, it's just the beginning." Lucy stood in front of a small crowd, her heart pounding as she adjusted her graduation cap. It was the day she had dreamed of for years, her graduation from the horticulture course. She had worked so hard to get here, and now, standing on the stage, she felt a wave of emotions wash over her: pride, relief, and a sense of accomplishment that she hadn't felt in a long time. She scanned the audience, her eyes landing on Alex, who was sitting in the front row, a proud smile on his face. He gave her a thumbs up, and she couldn't help but smile back. This moment wasn't just about her. It was about all the people who had supported her, who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. After the ceremony, Lucy found Alex waiting for her. He held a small bouquet of flowers, his eyes filled with warmth as he handed them to her. "Congratulations, Lucy," he said, his voice full of pride. "You did it." She took the flowers, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you, Alex. I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head, smiling. "You did this on your own. I was just here to cheer you on." Lucy smiled, tears welling in her eyes. She reached out, pulling him into a hug. "Thank you for always believing in me." He hugged her back, his voice soft. "Always." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Lucy. She had completed her course, and now she was ready to take the next step, starting her own business. She had always dreamed of working independently, of having her own clients and creating beautiful gardens for others. With Alex's help, she had begun to build a small client base. Word of her skills had spread, and people were beginning to take notice. She worked tirelessly, designing gardens, planting flowers, and helping people create spaces they loved. One day, as she was working in a client's garden, she received a call from her mother. Lucy smiled as she answered, her heart warming at the sound of her mother's voice. "Carita, I'm so proud of you," her mother said, her voice filled with emotion. "You've come so far." Lucy felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." Her mother laughed softly. "You've always been strong, Lucy. I'm so glad you never gave up on your dreams." After the call, Lucy stood there for a moment, looking at the garden she had just finished. It was beautiful, bright flowers, lush greenery, a place full of life and color. She felt a sense of pride that was hard to put into words. This was her work, her passion, and she was finally able to share it with the world. Later that evening, Alex and Lucy sat together in the garden at the mansion. The air was warm, and the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the flowers they had planted together. They were quiet for a while, just enjoying the peacefulness of the moment. Alex turned to Lucy, his eyes soft. "You've made this place incredible, Lucy. It's so different now, full of life, just like you." She looked at him, her heart swelling. "Thank you, Alex. This place means a lot to me. It's where everything started." He nodded, reaching out to take her hand. "And it's where everything continues. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want to be with you, no matter what." Lucy smiled, her heart full. "I feel the same way. We don't have to have everything figured out right now. We can just be." Alex smiled, leaning closer and pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Just being sounds perfect to me." The days turned into weeks, and Lucy and Alex settled into a new routine. They spent their days working, Lucy with her gardens, and Alex slowly reducing his workload, focusing more on the things that made him happy. He had spent so much of his life chasing success, But now he realized that true happiness was found in the small moments, in the mornings spent with Lucy, in the evenings watching the sunset together. Lucy's work began to gain recognition in the community. People admired her gardens, and word spread about her talent and dedication. She began to get more clients, her business growing slowly but steadily. It was hard work, but it was fulfilling, and she loved every moment of it. One day, Lucy and Alex decided to take a walk through the neighborhood. It had been a long time since they had just taken a stroll, without any agenda or destination. As they walked, they noticed some of the neighbors watching them, but this time, the looks were different. There was no judgment, no disapproval. Instead, there were smiles, nods of acknowledgement. Mrs. Rose Wilson, one of Lucy's neighbors, waved at them from her porch. "Lucy, it's good to see you. The garden you did for Donna Maria is beautiful. You've got a real talent, Menina." Lucy smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Rose Wilson. That means a lot." Alex looked at Lucy, his heart full. He could see how much she had grown, how much she had accomplished. She was no longer the shy gardener who worked quietly in the background. She was strong, confident, and respected. And he loved her even more for it. One evening, Alex surprised Lucy with a small gift, a potted flower, its petals a vibrant shade of red. He handed it to her with a smile, his eyes warm. "For you," he said softly. "A symbol of everything we've built together, of how far we've come." Lucy took the flower, her eyes filling with tears. She looked up at him, her heart overflowing with emotion. "Thank you, Alex, for everything, for believing in me, for standing by me." He reached out, cupping her cheek gently. "I'll always believe in you, Lucy, and I'll always be by your side." She smiled, leaning into his touch. They stood there for a moment, the world around them fading away. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a sweeping declaration. It was simple, and it was real. And for Lucy, that was enough. The story didn't end with a grand conclusion. There were no dramatic declarations, no promises of forever. Instead, there was a quiet understanding, a commitment to being present, to growing together, to facing whatever came their way, one day at a time. Lucy continued her work, building her business, creating beautiful gardens that brought joy to others. Alex found peace in the small moments, in the laughter they shared, in the quiet evenings spent together. And as they walked through the garden they had built together, hand in hand, they knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, no rush, no pressure. Just two people, choosing each other every day, and finding joy in the present. The future was uncertain, but it was also full of promise. And for now, that was more than enough.